Hello?
There you go. Hey guys, welcome back to Shifting Gears. My name is Greyson Harris, and making her return to Shifting Gears here is Whitney Cowell. How you doing, Whitney?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here. How are you?
You know what? Not bad. Not bad. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good
It's
to be
like
back.
old times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, today we're going to be talking about sort of a niche topic in transportation specifically, is the marketing side of it. How does it work? Why is it important? How can you use it to help your supply chain if you are a supply chain professional? And obviously we are sticking to the most part for transportation supply chain stuff, but I think a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today can be applied to other things as well. So if you're not in transportation or supply chain, don't feel like you're going to get left out. You might find something useful. So Whitney, one of the first things I wanted to start with is kind of just your background. You know, we'll get to know you a little bit, right? How did you get your start in transportation?
So I started in the transportation industry 2016, right after my birthday. It was a little birthday present. I got a corporate job.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, after a year of not having a corporate job, it was quite the change. But I was on the finance side under like the carrier umbrella, and I did not start in marketing until a few years later. So that was a fun evolution. My background was primarily like account management and sales, and true account management, where I was like onboarding with technology, customer retention, and then there was also like cross-selling and upselling. So that was the start.
Sure. Well, then how did it transform into marketing? Was it out of necessity, or did you just want to do it?
I was asked if I wanted to and said sure.
All right. Well,
I will say though, in that particular role, my job was split kind of in 3 different segments. So I still was doing a little bit of sales and customer service for a very small product. I was the only person on that product. And then I did marketing in 2 different areas. So one was under SaaS and the other one was under events. So very, very different. And this was all like the same role. My daily routine was a little bananas, but it was very fun.
So how did you end up at KCH?
I was not a victim of the economy necessarily. However, my career did take an impact when the economy did a cartwheel. And KCH I knew somebody that worked here, and they have a phenomenal reputation. It's somebody that I trusted. I reached out and said, can you tell me a little bit about where you work? Because I'm interested in learning a different area of the supply chain. I reached out to the company, and now I'm here.
Yeah. So what is it that you do here then? Well, first of all, what is your role? And then also, how would you describe your role to someone who may not know what it is that you do?
Yeah. So technically AVP of marketing is my title. I kind of fill in a lot of the like director responsibilities as well, just based off of team structure. So what that means is there is a team that sits underneath me, and I plan the strategy and manage the budgeting. There's a lot of elements as far as like trade shows and random pieces of merchandise and stuff like that kind of falls under my umbrella as well. The fun part about my job right now is that we outsource nothing, which is atypical in the supply chain and in logistics, specifically the logistics piece, because we are a 3PL. We have no contracts out, which is really nice. Everything that we do is fully in-house. So we have a larger than average team as well. And I love that. I love that everybody sits together, we work together, everybody on the team. This is the only brand that they focus on. That was a really important piece of the puzzle when building out what the future of KCH was going to look like.
Why is it important for logistics companies to possibly invest in their own marketing department if they don't have one? Like, why is it important to not outsource that stuff? Is there a benefit to it?
Yeah, I think there is. The number one reason I would say is because it's such a saturated market. First and foremost, like you need to have people that are advocating for your company in a way that resonates audibly, visually, and tangibly with your current customer base and your prospects. So if you don't have marketing, if you're just kind of like, we're winging it, that only lasts for so long. And there does become a point in the growth of a company where like startup culture is very fun because everybody has their hands in a lot of different things, but at some point you become more focused on like what your role is, and it's not sustainable for a person to have 17 different jobs, which I started to experience myself because the company where I was doing a bunch of things, you know, it got to the point where I was becoming a little bit more experienced and curious and wanting to push boundaries in one direction, but I couldn't do that without letting something else fall to the wayside. And the same will happen to companies that don't invest in their marketing. And then of course, like finding qualified leads is really important. That's something that we're able to do for our sales team. Having the brand awareness in the industry so that you are seen as experts in your fields, it just kind of puts a megaphone in front of the voices of the company. And then it allows you to be a little bit more creative in the ways that you're engaging with the industry. So whether that's, you know, attending events or sponsoring things that are local, or even like what we do is having interns from the community and like giving back in that kind of way. None of those things are really possible if you're not investing in the team in the back end.
What would you say is the biggest difference between a marketing department in general and just in a general company as opposed to a logistics company? What are the main differences between general marketing and supply chain marketing?
Well, depending on the area of the supply chain you're in, where we sit is we don't have a product.
That is correct.
Everything that we do, it is service-based. And so the marketing is really different. It is, I would argue, after seeing other shades of marketing and other business types, it is the hardest for sure. Not only is our industry incredibly saturated, but a lot of us are capable of doing the same things as others. And so it's really figuring out like, what is our company very, very good at? Who does our company represent? And then how do we then convey that message to the outside world? Mm-hmm. And so in that way, it is very different. You know, if we were on the manufacturing side, it would be, you know, what are these components going to be used for? And how do we find the right facilities for those things? And marketing would look a little bit different. And also on the manufacturing side, I feel like how you look at trade shows, which is really big in the logistics, it's surprisingly big in the logistics industry. That piece of marketing looks very different than it does when you are service-based.
Where does this kind of marketing really take place? Like, so you mentioned trade shows, social media, for example. Like, what are the avenues that people can use to utilize marketing in logistics, transportation?
Social media is where we should all start. And that is so far beyond just, we have somebody that posts birthdays. Like that's great. And we love that. We love celebrating our people. However, if you're not using social media to attract A, the prospects that you want, B, keeping customers engaged, right? Like things that are interesting for your current customer base to engage with, to see, to kind of continue that relationship, because social media is a social platform. Yeah. It is what it is. And so social is built primarily off of reciprocity, and whether or not I am having a one-to-one conversation with somebody or posting something for everyone to see, there shouldn't be a disconnect in who you feel like you're talking to. And the same holds true for companies. So we do have the opportunity to actually strengthen relationships with our customers and with our prospects, and with, in our case, internal employees that don't sit in the same offices or even like the same time zones, purely by how we approach our social media. So I think it's a really important place to start and get really good at. And I don't think that you all, like everybody has to have the exact same social strategy. There are some companies, there are some business models that do really well on one platform that maybe don't take off as well on another one. And I don't think it's necessarily fair to like compare yourself to other competitors. That might be a really unpopular opinion. Instead, I would say, where are the people that you're trying to attract, and then get really good at that place.
So if you're then trying to advertise a service, that's obviously different and as you mentioned, probably harder than advertising a product. How then is social media then utilized to advertise a service? Because it doesn't seem on the outset like it would be all that like straightforward. I'm asking the question about something that I do, but I'm just trying to keep the conversation moving.
Sure.
What are some things that you've seen succeed on the social media side that has actually been able, that you've seen translate into tangible results, either with hiring marketing or with prospects?
One of the biggest pieces that I think is a mark that you don't want to miss that I've seen fail, and I'll start with that, is we do this thing. I think it's important to let people know that you do this thing, but nobody cares unless if you say like why that matters and how that solves a problem. And that's something that I think we do really well with. And for us, like a big part of our social media that you do very well is also, here are the people that are doing that thing. Get to know us as like individuals and as an entity. And along the way, like we will show you how we can help solve your problems, because in the supply chain, some verticals have really complex problems that if we were just to like put that out there, like these are the things that like the problems that they face, like that can be so like convoluted. I feel like that can get really muddy. It's very confusing. It's like, it's too much. Sometimes it's just too much. And so finding that balance is something that I think we do really well, of how do we make this very customer centric, where we're positioning the problems in a way that then positions our solutions towards the right people. It's a challenge, and it's a challenge from one platform to the next of how does that resonate, because some people on this platform will love reading about it in this way, and then you go to another platform and it's like, we got to make this quick and efficient and fast, and it's got to sound really good, and the visuals have to be enough where somebody doesn't like swipe and scroll. It is something that you are very good at.
Well, I only asked that question because I wanted a pat on the back. So thank you for boosting my ego. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. No, I mean, I'll add a little bit to that. I would say something that I focus on is establishing an identity, because as you said, we're not really selling a product. It'd be much easier if I worked for a pizza company and I could just be like, look at this pizza, how good it is. That's easy to market. Like I can just take a picture of it. Everybody loves pizza, right? But when you're marketing a service, in a way, you're really marketing yourself. Mm-hmm. You're marketing what you as a person or as a company have to offer. So I think establishing some sort of identity and some sort of like comfort level with the people who find you via social media, they at least feel as though they have a decent idea of who it is that they're working with. Right. They know what the vibe is like in the office, what kind of people that they are going to be working with. So if there is like a secret recipe to the success, it's just try to figure out what it is that not only that you as a company do well, but what sets your company apart from everybody else from like a personal perspective. And whatever that is, find it and highlight it. And I think that's really been the thing that's worked the best for me.
And that establishes trust, right? Yeah. Like when you get to know the people are what make up the entity as a whole. Like the people of KCH Transportation are KCH Transportation. And so like, sure, in order to have trust with the company, it starts on the personal level. We have to be very careful of how we represent the people of our company, making sure that it's accurate, that it's fair, that it is representative of the services that we also provide. That's something that I think we have done very well, that I think you have done very well, is establishing that trust and empowering the people to do that for themselves, to advocate for themselves, to make a name for themselves, to stand out amongst, I mean, we think that the industry we're in is diluted. I mean, think of how many people then make up that industry. That's something that I know has been a very big, like, personal project, is how do we then empower everyone else to say, I am an expert at being able to do this, not just our company, but I specifically would love to build a relationship with you, the prospect, or to continue helping you, the customer, win.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've really enjoyed lately is empowering people and making them and giving them the confidence to feel like they can create their own brand for themselves. Like, you don't have to be an influencer to build up a brand that is respectable and trustworthy and impactful. Really, all the work it takes is using social media as a social platform and engaging in the content and putting your name out there and basically having your own sort of brand awareness. On social media, for example, like, again, going back to what my strategy is, I just don't ever want people to be like, why would I ever follow my company's social media? Why would there ever be anything fun about a corporate social media account. I think because I've made it to where people actually may look forward to the next video that comes out, or they don't just skip it completely, that gives them a bit more confidence to say, okay, well, I trust our social media department here. If they say to do this, that, or the other, I know that it's probably going to work, and that they are also producing content that I can then utilize on my own, right? So if I'm someone else who works here and I see this video of all of us having fun and playing games, and maybe I'm a hiring manager and I want people to see like, hey, this is a pretty chill place to work. Like, obviously, yeah, like we work, we grind, we're determined people, but also we have fun. Look at that. And all it takes really is one of those hiring managers to get on one of those posts and repost it with a comment being like, hey, by the way, does this look like a fun office to you? It sure does to me. If you want to come work here, here's my email. Let's talk about it, set up an interview. I think that's been probably the most helpful end of it. I mean, what are some other tips that you've seen from, because I know you're a lot better at this on a personal level than I am on like branding yourself, especially on LinkedIn. So what would you say has been, some of the best tips that you can give for networking on social media?
I also am by no means an influencer. Like, I do not have a ton of engagement on my posts. I see other people and I'm like, I don't know how you got to that number. And that's okay. It's also like not a goal of mine, right? Like, I'm not as consistent as I could be, which I would say is probably the number one thing I would recommend, is like being consistent and sharing things that like you genuinely are passionate about and that you care about, because I feel like you can only go so far when you're like, I think this is what people want to hear, and where it's like, it doesn't feel sincere, it doesn't feel genuine, and it's like hard to keep up. Like, you'll get burnt out trying to be something that you're not on social media. I am by far, like I said, not influencer level. I don't care to be, but I do have a really strong network. I like to not just comment and engage with like people's posts, but like I'll send them messages as well. I don't send them to everybody. I don't spend, like, I know there's somebody I follow that they carve out 8 hours, like a full day worth of time out of their week to be on social media. Personally, do not care to get to that level. It's amazing. I'm sure the results are incredible. If I were maybe in a different role, like if I were in sales, that would probably be a really strong tactic, is investing in those relationships in a different way, where I'm like talking to somebody versus what I do, where I'm like building my network in a way where like I'm appreciating what somebody else is doing and I am in a learning stage. That's how I like to approach mine, and it's worked for me. Now, my own like separate podcast it's a slow start, also not very consistent with
Go ahead and plug that, by the way. What is it?
It's called The Mediocre Marketer. We may or may not talk about marketing in each episode. You'll find out when you listen.
It will be mediocre, though.
I say that because the title behind it, not that this has anything to do with this episode of Shifting Gears. I surround myself with people that I think are a lot smarter than I am at things that I am passionate about. And that's how like this team came into fruition, is what do people care about? What do they love to do? And let's maximize that. Let's capitalize on it for the company, but also like, let's build some careers around passion. And because of that, I'm not sure that I'll ever master like one specific thing. The thing that I post most often about on LinkedIn is like leadership. And that's because it's something that I am very passionate about. It is what I do day in and day out. And I fall on my face a lot. And I'm happy to share about that. I'm happy to share about the things that I've learned along the way, other things that I've learned from people that I'm trying to implement and how that worked or didn't work. And so The Mediocre Marketer is basically me learning from people that I think are smarter than I am in very specific ways, and also like getting to know them and their stories. So that's why like I don't care to be an influencer. If anything, I want to champion the stories of other people above my own, and that's why I built a podcast to do that.
What are some things that you think companies want to see from logistics companies, from their marketing or from their social media?
A lot of feedback I've heard is people, specifically like prospects in most verticals and in most like sectors of the supply chain, really want to know the company culture. I know it's like a buzzword and a lot of people talk about it and can sometimes feel like this elusive thing. It's like it's fun, it's collaborative. Like that to me is not company culture. But they want to know like, how do people work together? Because in our industry, if operations and sales can't be on the same page and work really well together, there's going to be miscommunications. There are going to be dropped balls with certain customers, and people want to feel safe with who they choose, not just as a provider, but as a partner. That would be the biggest lesson I've learned in our space of what people really want to see. And it's not all the time like games and fun stuff. Well, we do that as a company, so we post it because it represents us.
Sure.
It's also like when we are going after a company in a vertical, or when we're working with a customer that has a very specific like commodity, we like to showcase that we know what we're doing, and that's through a group effort to get to a like strong solution, to get to a good outcome, where it's not just a good outcome for us, but like everybody feels taken care of, from the carrier to the client to the team behind it all.
I would say also people just want to see that who they're working with, they're happy or they're content, or that that they want to do what it is that they're doing. Because I know that in this industry, depending on where you are, the turnover rate can be pretty high, you know? And so for me as a prospect, as a shipper, I want to work with someone that I know is going to be there in another 6 or 7 months. I don't necessarily want to be like, okay, I'm working with Ryan today. I come in tomorrow and I email Ryan, oh, Ryan left. What are you talking about? He's only been here 2 weeks. Yeah, we know. Well, here's Jim. Okay, well, 1 month later, Jim's gone.
Right.
You know, and that's not what I want. Consistency. I want to know that who I'm working with, first of all, I want to know that who I'm working with I can actually like talk to. A lot of people tell me, especially in operations or in sales, that 90% of their conversations with clients, prospects, whatever, have almost nothing at all to do with their business or supply chain
because
or logistics.
Because it's a relationship. They're having a conversation.
Exactly.
And I feel like when you've reached that point with somebody, you know you have built a relationship. Your job isn't over, but I feel like that is such a good sign. And on the marketing end, that is also like a trigger point where you're able to ask for certain things from that customer. I'm not going to give away all of our company strategies, but that, you know, you need to know on the marketing end what's happening in other departments so that you understand who your very well established customers are, but also who do we have the best relationships with? Those are very important key pieces of information that impact that's even going to impact like billing and their job.
I mean, you may not even get to the, having conversations and relationship building part if, for example, I go to your social media and I don't see a single person on it. If it's all infographics of like, we're hiring here, we're hiring there, we have trucks. Cool, but who are you?
Right.
Who actually are you? I can find a million companies that do what you do, but why do I want to work with you? Unless I'm only about the numbers and that's it, which... yeah, let's face it, some people are. Yeah. But most of us are humans. I do believe that most of us are actual people, right? So there's going to be emotions and feelings and biases involved. So you might as well present yourself as the best possible version of yourself that you can possibly be. It
is a profitable way to approach social media or relationships or whatever, wherever you're at with that. Like it does need to be like you don't want to just spin your wheels in ways that aren't working for anybody and just keep doing that. Like that's crazy.
But I guess along those lines, then you're mentioning like being able to work within departments and communication. How specifically, I'll keep it with sales here because operations is a totally different monster. But with sales, how would you describe the relationship between marketing and sales? It may seem obvious, but tell us what you know anyway.
So relationship, goodness, between marketing and sales. And I will lightly throw in operations because that is your go-to-market team, right? Like those are the ones that are customer facing in some capacity. Those teams need to be on the same page with what our goals are, who our ideal customers are, what our retention strategy is going to look like, how we want to source people, what that customer life cycle ideally would look like, what does it really look like, and then be able to pinpoint like how do we help one another reach those goals. And so if, for example, I think on the marketing end my ideal customer is this, and then I find out we don't really have the capacity for that. We have like 2 really good customers and we'd like to do more. Well, that's a good like company goal, right? For leadership to strategize around down the road. But if that's not who our like sustainable current customer is that we'd like to be going after, that we can immediately handle their needs. There's a disconnect between what happened in the sales and marketing communication. I would say like regular meetings are a must. Having an understanding of this is what marketing's initiatives are doing. This is what sales would like to do. And then asking questions. What's the best way to approach this thing? How do we talk about this? What's the best ways that you've seen work when we're positioning like this specific type of service? And then on the marketing end of saying, now when you're in conversation with these people, what do they usually ask you for, so that we can be proactive in having those assets for you, so that we can specifically say in our messaging, verbiage that mirrors what you're using, so it feels like a seamless conversation from start to finish, from our marketing leads to our sales leads. There's not a disconnect where all of a sudden you kind of feel like the customer is being whiplashed into like a different conversation with a totally different person. It is a lofty goal to start with that process. I will say for companies that are building from the ground up, like don't miss that. Like to our earlier conversation, if you don't have a marketing department, if you do just have one person, if you're considering onboarding more people, or if you're looking to bring on partners that are maybe contracted out, don't miss that opportunity to build a strong foundation, because it's a lot harder to go back and fix those problems than it is to go slow, build something that is sustainable, and then move forward from there. But it can be done. Like there is always a way to fix things that are broken. It's just being mindful that it has to start at the top, like leadership conversations beyond sales and leadership teams, where everybody is involved, and then bringing in the next layer of management, whatever that looks like, and then having that conversation again and leaving space for people to ask questions, to voice their concerns without feeling like they're being attacked, and then rinse and repeat with the next layer until you get to the ground floor. And then one of the things that we did that was really successful is just like interviews with people. Leadership and ground floor are like diagonally talking to each other. That's a really important piece that some companies leave out, and that builds that trust between departments.
What are some of the most common misconceptions about what marketing does?
We don't just make pretty things. That, in my opinion, that is the biggest misconception. And also, now I might get bite back from this, but like Google isn't absolutely everything. There's so much more to marketing than just what's happening on Google. And then the components of what it takes to run certain campaigns. There's all different campaign types, and within each type, there are different ways to approach them. There are different ways to leverage materials. It is so much more in-depth than some people realize, which is why we have a team of specialists instead of a team of generalists. I think the biggest misconception in companies and from other departments is that marketing just like makes fun things. They just like post random stuff on social media, and then they like make sure that if I search this, like it comes up on Google. Sometimes that is not like priority number one.
I think a lot of people look at social media like that's marketing.
Yeah.
Just the social media side of it.
Social media is in t-shirts.
It's social media, t-shirts, the things that people just see, like that's marketing. And people were like, "Oh, Greyson, you're good at marketing." I'm not good at marketing. I'm learning how to be good at this specific sub-branch of marketing. But we have 7, 8 people on our team total,
7.
Something like that. And we all have our plates full of different things, right? So that's why you can't have like a one-man marketing team if you ever want to be successful, is because if you have one person stretched in 7 different directions, every one of those 7 things that they do is probably going to suck because they don't have time to make a website and make TikToks and make a one-pager and reach out and do an email campaign. One person doing all that, impossible.
And to your point, like even for your job, sometimes that's split between like organic social and paid social. Those are 2 different things. And then paid social looks different on every platform.
Yeah.
And so it just keeps tree branching out. That's where I think the misconceptions come into play. Like Google, there's paid search and organic search. And those are 2 very different things. And they stem from 2 very different types of processes. And then you can like get into the weeds with one and the other, and then there's like all these different strategies, and then they start overlapping with PR. That's not even marketing. That's it's a totally different thing. But they do have a lot of overlapping. You need one to run the other. And so there's a lot of misconceptions about marketing. I think some people think it's really easy. It's just like saying that sales is easy. It's really not. You know, you can follow for some things like a script and sell the thing, but then you move into a different industry or into a different market type, and all of a sudden it becomes a totally different animal. You're then, depending on, you know, the price of certain things, like people get very uncomfortable with that. There are some parts where there's like a basic model and then there's all these add-ons and the goal is to reach this. Well, how do you get them interested enough in the foundational piece to then build on top of that? And so there is a lot more to it than just I pick up the phone and make calls, or like I send emails and then I land a deal. That's kind of what we're looking at. We're saying like the basics versus what it really is.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice or one thing you wish you had known when you first started like really getting into marketing?
You're going to fail more than you're going to win. And for those that are like naturally curious, which I am one of those almost to a fault, where I like to have grand plans and then poke a lot of holes in them, and oftentimes that means I push something to the point where I don't know if it's going to work or not. I would rather try it knowing that there is good reason behind it, there is good data behind it, and the budget is like not risky. Sometimes it is, and see what happens so that we have a good foundational piece of, yes, we need to try that again. Now let's take a little bit more of a risk with it. Or, hey, that super didn't work. No thanks. But a lot of times you're going to find what does not work. And with my background being in a different sector of the supply chain, you know, I really had a lot to learn. And now that we have a lot of people that report to me, and, you know, I'm in charge of a lot of people's workplace joy and their careers, it's making sure that those wins really, really count, and the learning opportunities don't feel like failures. They feel like an opportunity to grow.
Any other bits of advice or tips or bits of knowledge you want to leave the people with?
So one thing that I offer, just like as a person that likes to give back to marketers, because I know the conversations that need to be had and the pushback that will come with it, is if you are a one-man team and you're looking to build your team out, contact me on LinkedIn. Like, I would love to help you have that conversation, because I think that every marketer that's a generalist deserves an opportunity to expand their skill sets, and you'll just never be able to do it if you're always operating by yourself. Unless if you're like running your own business and those are the limits that you've set for yourself, you are going to hit a glass ceiling. Not to discourage anybody that's in that position, but if you're like, I am ready to take my career to the next step and I need help to do that, like, I would love to talk with you. I've done that, I think, now with 3 people, and 2 of them have found success in being able to build a team, or at least bring on a partner.
I can attest. She's very good at that. She turned me from a generalist into a guy that makes halfway decent TikToks. So thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully you all learned something new today. If you have any ideas for future topics or just things where you're like, I wonder how this works, let us know. We're always looking for some new ideas for episodes. But in the meantime, like I said, go check out the description for all of our stuff. Subscribe, like the video, all those things that YouTubers tell you to do. And we hope you have a good rest of your week. Thanks for watching.
See ya.
Bye.